Across the Caribbean, energy is essential. It powers our homes, our schools, our businesses, our lives. But today, that energy comes at a high cost. Imported fossil fuels leave us vulnerable to price shocks, to economic strain, and to the growing impacts of climate change. Still, we have the opportunity and the will to change that story. A regional solution isn't just possible, it's already underway.
When we think about the individual islands of the Caribbean, we generally tend to think about the challenges. So the challenges that are related to our energy sovereignty. But when we look at ourselves as individuals, we each have our strengths. So for example, Dominica has geothermal, St. Kitts and Nevis has geothermal. Other islands, they have access to wind energy, they have access to solar energy. And so if we were to have a unified market and each island was to leverage their strength, then it would give the opportunity for us to be able to share resources, bring down the cost of electricity. And so really resource sharing is the only way to make it feasible. From an investment point of view, but also from a sustainability point of view. And so being able to produce at mass, but then share that energy is the only way that the Caribbean can become energy resilient and gain energy sovereignty.
By coming together as a region, we can build a shared energy market, one where countries support each other, pool resources, and share clean energy across borders. From solar to wind to green hydrogen, our renewable energy potential is vast and interconnected. A unified approach means stronger systems, better pricing, and more resilient communities.
The transition will require a number of different changes to our power system. And these components and these changes cannot be undertaken in isolation. The question really focuses on the technical requirements, but a lot of things have to work together to ensure that we can undertake the transition responsibly. We're going from systems where we had a lot of control over our sources of power to those where we have less control. We have a lot more participants in the power sector than we did before, and in the energy sector more broadly. The specific vulnerabilities of the storage is a big topic these days. So you can see how with those changes, there is no way we'll be able to ensure that the transition is undertaken well unless we look at everything in its entirety. So beyond undertaking technical assessments of how these things will impact the power system, we need to understand how policies will influence it, regulations will ensure that it's done properly, and all other aspects of the sector can work together.
But the transition isn't without challenges. Our electricity grids are aging, energy storage remains limited, and scaling up renewable energy means redesigning how our systems work from generation to distribution. These are complex issues, but they can be overcome with the right planning and investment.
So pool procurement, and persons would be hearing this term bandied about now, pool procurement. What does it actually mean? It's actually quite simple. It's a group of people getting together and saying we all need the same thing and we're going to buy it in bulk, right? And we're going to buy it in bulk because we'll get it cheaper and we'll get it on more favorable terms. So if they're getting orders from multiple countries that have a much bigger request than the Caribbean, it just makes economic sense for them to fill those orders and then see about the Caribbean, which is a much smaller order. So how do we make ourselves seen and heard as a region? How do we make ourselves skip to the front of the line in terms of what manufacturers want and what the people who supply the things that we need. We need to come together.
Working together, CARICOM countries can negotiate better terms on everything from solar panels to energy storage. We can streamline our policies and make the region more attractive for investment. When we align our goals and speak with one voice, we amplify our influence.
So the energy transition is not just about infrastructure, it's about people. Without public support and endorsement, policy changes and technology investments will fall short. They always fall short. When people understand the financial, the social, and the climate benefits of sustainable energy, they demand action, from decision makers to achieving meaningful progress. Businesses and industries that recognize cost savings from renewable energies will invest in sustainable energy solutions. And when we are energy literate, the Caribbean will not just be a consumer of sustainable energy, but we will also be a global leader in energy innovation.
At the center of this effort is the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, CCRE. With a clear regional mandate and deep technical know-how, CCRE drives collaboration, supports project development, and builds momentum across the sector. It's where ideas take shape and partnerships turn plans into action.
I see CCRE as a progressive movement, a movement driving the Caribbean's sustainable energy future. And our core mission is to catalyze a rapid and sustainable energy transition that secures energy independence, economic resilience, and climate leadership for CARICOM countries. We are positioned in the region to be a global nexus for renewable energy innovation and investment, attracting global innovators, incubating groundbreaking solutions, and fast-tracking the deployment of scalable, investment-ready technologies. So by integrating technical expertise, investment readiness, and capacity building, CCRE is helping our CARICOM member states to design a future that really exceeds our expectations.
As the climate crisis intensifies, our energy systems must be built not just to perform, but to endure. They need to withstand storms and bounce back quickly when disaster strikes. Resilience isn't optional, it's essential.
But when we look at energy, it's energy as how it impacts our tourism, which is a big part of our economy in the Caribbean. Energy as how it impacts our healthcare system. Energy in terms of how it impacts our education system. Energy in terms of how it impacts our transportation system. And then if you look at our agriculture system, you also need energy there. So energy is at the foundation of everything that we need in the region. When we look at how we bounce back from climatic events such as hurricanes, etc., the first thing that we always need to restore is energy. For everything else to get up and running, we need to have energy.
It's about lowering costs for households, creating opportunities for young people, and making sure women and communities are part of the solution. Everyone has a role in building our energy future.
So success means a Caribbean that is energy secure, climate resilient, and economically competitive, where every household, business, and industry has access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy, exporting clean energy to neighboring countries and exporting technical expertise of Caribbean people globally and throughout the world. This is not just a vision. For me, this is a blueprint for action. And I'd really like to see CCRE leading the way in achieving this.
A low-carbon Caribbean is within reach, one where energy is cleaner, more affordable, and more secure, where we shape, not inherit, our future. This isn't just a Caribbean energy transition, it's an uprising.